Ever wondered how to spot a bad investment? Today, Rod and I are going to talk about the 5 warning signs that you need to be looking out for to avoid getting into a bad investment. Okay, let's jump into it. I'm Christian Allen. He's Rod Zabriskie. And today we're hitting on the 5 warning signs of a bad investment. Rod, the first one is lack of transparency. Talk about why that is critical and why that's a early warning sign of a bad investment.
Yeah, especially if you're an accredited investor and you're getting into like an unregistered type of investment, then you're just relying on them giving you the information that you need. And can I say this? If you're not getting the information you need on the front end, chances are you're not going to get it once you get in and are moving through with this investment. So, what are you looking for? Well, obviously, you want clarity on what the investment is, how you get in, how you get out, what kind of reporting they're going to be giving you, what kind of track record they have. There are so many details that you need to do when you're doing your due diligence. And if they're not forthright with those, especially like if they're not giving you the majority of that right up front before you even have to ask any questions, that's a problem. But then number two, when you do get into your questions, if they're not if they don't have ready answers and they're not forthright, not transparent in what they're giving you in their answers, then I would say turn and run.
Okay, so we love alternative investing. We talk about it all the time, but there is one downside to the alternative space, and that is that there is not nearly the amount of oversight that there is in what you see in like registered stocks, bonds, mutual funds, right? So in that world, they're forced to be transparent in, they're compelled to be that through the SEC. And in the alternative space, because of less regulation, you have to find people who just know the value of doing it, right? So right up front, they're saying we choose to be, as an investment opportunity, incredibly transparent so that you know all the details and you can get there, you can understand it and make a good decision. So lack of transparency is really critical. That's sign number one. You have to have transparency. Sign number two, Rod, is promises of high returns with little or no risk. Okay, so this might seem obvious because obviously anytime we're investing, we're taking on some sort of risk, but all too often there's over promises that end up being under delivered, right? So if you go into something feeling like it's too good to be true, if it looks too good to be true, chances are it probably is. Now, I will give a caveat to that because oftentimes people misunderstand the differences between like the types of returns that are available inside the alternative space and when we're kind of typically investing in mutual funds. And so sometimes when there's a move over from the traditional space where it's like I'm happy to get 8 or 9% on my mutual funds, and then I go into the alternative space and I'm looking at internal rate of returns at 18 or 20%. Suddenly, those can look a little bit confusing. So it's not that there's not an opportunity to create high returns. It's just that you have to be aware of what that should look like and make sure that the returns are in line with the amount of risk that you're ultimately taking.
Well, one other thought, when you are assessing the risk, again, the warning is if they're telling you there's little or no risk, then that's a huge warning sign because there always is risk. It's just a matter of understanding it, trying to quantify it, and then decide if that's risk that you're willing to take on, right? It doesn't necessarily mean it's always quote unquote high risk if you're just identifying it, right? So, but if you're getting in those details and they just don't back off the idea that, oh man, there's no risk, it's a no brainer, everybody would do it, right? Then you want to dig a little deeper and or just feel like, man, they're violating both warning sign number one, where they're lacking transparency in really what those risks are, and number two, where they're either unaware of those risks or just aren't willing to talk about them.
Okay, so you have to avoid lack of transparency. You definitely want to avoid over promises, right? So too high of returns for little or no risk is a huge warning sign. Rod, talk about the third one. Man, this is one of my biggest pet peeves. What is it?
It's high pressure to invest quickly. Tomorrow's the deadline. You have to make a decision now. We have to have your money in 2 days. And if that's the message that you're getting, and there's no backing off of that, there's no even promises for additional investment opportunities down the road. So, for example, let's just say, because are there deadlines? Of course there are. They have to create deadlines. So, is it possible that the deadline really is in 2 days? Yes, but if the deadline is in 2 days, and they're making you feel like this is the only deal you're ever going to have the opportunity to do, or this is the best thing that's ever going to come, we may never see anything like this again, then those are warning signs. Because even if the deadline is in 2 days, but they're a legitimate investment, opportunity, they're going to have additional opportunities come down the line. And if they know what they're doing, they know how to find the property or whatever it is, and build it the right way so that it can create good returns, being a good investment opportunity for you, then they're going to have additional means of doing that down the road. So if it's all now, you have to do it, or else, forevermore, you're just going to have missed out. That's a warning sign.
That's a huge warning sign. And this is one of my biggest pet peeves, Rod. When this was just last week, I got an email and it was about an opportunity. I got on with the salesperson and they just pushed, you've got to do it today. And if you do it today, you get X percentage off, but that's never going to happen again. And this was great. I basically came back and said, okay, those are all great. I'm excited about that. And I'll be ready to invest once I'm able to talk to a couple of existing clients, see this data and information. And the salesperson was like literally offended. So here's the deal. For me, that was a huge warning sign. I obviously got off the phone and said, not happening, at least not right now. So I think this is one of those things that isn't always representative of the backing of the company. It could be a sales representative. But in general, if you're seeing that, especially at multiple levels within the organization and within an opportunity, I would just run away. Chances are it's not going to work out. It's not going to work out well for you. Okay, Rod, that brings us to number 4. Warning sign number 4 is either poor or no track record. Okay, this one is a little difficult because obviously we want to give opportunities for, like, in order to become a new operator. Well, I just think about it, someone who's generating investment opportunities in general, like you have to start somewhere. Generally, the better way to start is to get a track record working with someone who already has it. So if you're excited about a new opportunity, but you're working with someone brand new, you may want to rethink it, because at the end of the day, even if they have the best of intentions, the lack of experience can be a huge issue. So you want to watch out and make sure that they're, and of course, poor track record kind of speaks for itself, right? No track record can be a little bit tricky, but if it's just a bad track record, that's a pretty easy warning sign.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, it probably goes without saying, but we want to work with people who know what they're doing. And to your point, can someone be creating a new setup and still know what they're doing? It's possible, but especially if you're new in the investment space or in that type of investment and they're new, it's a bad mix, right? In other words, if even if it is somebody who really knows what they're doing and they're just kind of getting started in a new organization, you need to know, you need to be able to figure out that they know what they're doing, ask the right questions, look at maybe track record from a different organization or other successes that they've had that may be different. And then, but then you have to have the know-how or the experience to translate that into now what they're doing. Is their previous success, even if it's somewhere else, going to translate into success here? It's a question mark, right? It's going to be higher risk to do that. But man, you just really have to be careful on that.
Okay, track record's important. Warning sign number 5, high fees and hidden costs. Okay, that's a little bit of a funny one. High fees are obvious, right? If we see high fees all over the place, like, we have to ask ourselves, what am I getting for those fees? Now, I always tell people this. Whenever I bring up cost, there's always a cost benefit proposition. One cannot be looked at without the other. I often give the example of hedge funds where there are high fees, but oftentimes investors get high results. They get great results back. That can happen. But if you don't have the necessary track record of performance that goes with those high fees, then the chances are that's a big warning sign that it's not going to work out so well. So high fees, and then Rod, talk about hidden costs. What does that even mean?
Yeah, well, this is a tricky one because if they're hidden, then how do you know about them? Well, here's the thing. You are given information by the operator so that you can make a decision to run with. And they'll often do presentations or have some sort of glossy brochure or whatever. Well, if in the glossy brochure you don't see anything about these costs, and it's not until you really dig deep into the fine print and the legal language of the contract before you see those things, that's a huge red flag, because if they're not forthright with what you're seeing now, well, now what else is in there that you don't know about, right? And we all know that there are going to be elements of you don't know what you don't know, right? But if they're not helping you fill those gaps, giving the information you need to do that, and you're having to dig deep before you find stuff like this, like fees, then that's a huge red flag.
Okay, to recap, watch out for lack of transparency, unrealistic returns, pressure to invest quickly, lack of performance or no performance at all, and finally, high fees or hidden costs. All of those make up the 5 warning signs of a bad investment. Let us know what you think in the comments below. Thanks for watching.